Aloha StandFast community, Katie Copeskey here, your Senior VP of Programming, wanting to talk a little bit more about that ABC model. Now that we've introduced this concept and the importance of self-awareness, let's dial in a little bit more and really start to move into that self-regulation piece. So I hope you've taken some time to notice, like, how am I reacting? How are my thoughts driving my consequences? How are my emotions? How are my reactions? Are they helping the situation? Are they harming the situation? Just really becoming more in tune with what's rattling around in our brains and noticing the impact that that has on our emotions, our feelings, and ultimately how we react. Are we thinking that this is going to be a helpful way to respond, or is this a harmful way to respond? So, first and foremost, let's just be real about the current situation and how much harder this is right here, right now. With so many shifts in our day to day lives, our routines being tossed out the window on the regular, the additional demands to our schedules, things that we're having to take care of that we never had to before, from taking care of family, taking care of our kids, while also juggling all the responsibilities of hashtag adulting. I mean, there's just a lot of strain and stress that's an additional burden, an additional tax on our brains. So when we're stressed out, when we have these additional burdens, it makes it harder. So I just wanted to put that out there. So if you feel like you are on the struggle bus sometimes, like, get on board with me. Like, this is extra hard right now. I also want to add in a layer to our awareness that our brains are naturally wired to actually notice the negative. It's called the negativity bias, where we have this natural tendency to notice, think about, talk about, lay in bed thinking about, sharing with other people, stuff that's not so great. And if we think about, what's the value, what's the purpose of this negativity bias, it's actually a protective agency. So if we go back to caveman days, right? So caveman Katie was on the lookout for threats in her environment so that when she was coming back to the cave at the end of the day, she could report to people what was lurking out there. I mean, it's more important for us to know where the lions and the tigers are versus the beautiful field of flowers. So we're naturally oriented towards noticing the things that are not so great. And again, we see this in our news, we see this in our social media. It's very obvious once you start to notice this. So that makes it even more challenging to have to defeat some of these negative thoughts. So let's get into some strategies, some techniques that we can use when we're really starting to notice this negative self-talk, or we notice that our emotions and reactions aren't getting us closer to our goals. Maybe they're damaging other people around us. So let's just hit the pause button and dig into some of these ideas for what we can do in the heat of the moment. So first things first. One of the things that I like to do is to write it out. Our thoughts tend to easily turn into a reality. This is how I'm seeing the situation. And sometimes our thoughts, our perceptions, our beliefs aren't actually accurate. So when we can write it down, that gives us that pause moment, that gives us the ability to judge and critique what it is that we're thinking. So if I am beating myself up, if I'm being, that little devil in my head, if I am being very critical, very judgmental of my performance, of how things are going in my day or in my relationship with my husband and my friends, I can just jot that stuff down. And what's really empowering about this is you get to dismantle that thought. You get to look at that and say, huh, that's not actually very true. So there's huge power in just taking what's swirling around up here and just putting pen to paper. Or if you want to just talk it out, like using your microphone on your device and just speak it out, once you can get that in a way that you can look at it, it's really fascinating to be like, really? Is that what I really believe about myself or the situation or others? Oof, hold on a second. Let me make sure that I'm being accurate with my thinking. The second thing that we can do is distraction. So sometimes we are just noticing these overwhelming negative thoughts and we just need a shift in direction. So this is when I like to go and do the dishes. This is when I like to do some laundry. This is when I like to put on some music, just anything that can get me to stop that train track of negativity, right? So just a physical movement can help me to get reoriented towards my goal once I've shifted myself out of that from a physical perspective. Something else that we can do is phone a friend. So it's really interesting what might happen if we share what we're thinking about ourselves, about a situation, and we realize this isn't really helpful. And we have to be careful about who we might be sharing this with because they might just add fuel to our fire. But who in my phone a friend category can offer a different perspective? Who is it that I can be most vulnerable with in sharing these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions, and maybe these not so great reactions in a way that they will offer compassion, they will offer some kindness and become that angel on my other shoulder and offer some words of tenderness and give me just a different outlook that I can lean into. I mentioned that we can try distractions. I want to add in like a layer of a more purposeful distraction. So I mentioned dancing. I mentioned, listening to music that really gets me energized and really gets me refocused. So one of the things that I want to add in is the huge value of positive emotion. So when we do something that feels good, it lowers our anxiety. It helps take the blinders off of our thinking patterns. It gets us to be more creative with our thinking. There's so many benefits to just getting that boost of positive emotion. So thinking ahead and thinking maybe what can be something that I can do that's going to provoke something, a good feeling inside of me. That's super helpful when it comes to really stopping that negative stuff in its tracks. So let's do a really quick recap. So we've got the power of writing it down, giving yourself that mental pause button to really judge and think to ourselves, is that really true? Is that really accurate? We've got some distraction, some shift in our attention to something completely different. We've got the phone a friend option to get a different perspective and hopefully get some compassion along the way. And then dialing in some positive emotion so that we can be more clear headed and more creative in our thinking. And again, the whole goal is to make sure that our thoughts, our beliefs are driving helpful emotions and reactions. So I hope that this has been helpful. Feel free to give any feedback on if any one of these tools is most helpful for you in order to stop that negative train in your brain. We'll talk to you again soon.